Death's Immortal Debt is a tale about love's selfishness, how one moment changed a life that never should have been, and the consequences from that choice. Death's Immortal Debt. The first time I was supposed to take Elara Thorne, she was drowning. It was 1824, a spring morning in Cornwall, and she'd gone swimming despite the storm warnings. I remember watching from the cliffs as the current pulled her under, her white dress billowing like a jellyfish in the dark water. I remember descending, ready to guide her soul across, to offer the mercy that was my purpose. I remember her eyes opening underwater, meeting mine. Most people don't see me clearly in their final moments. They see shadows, suggestions, the idea of an ending rather than the entity itself. But Elara saw me completely, my form, crystallized by her perception. And in that instant of recognition, something impossible happened. I hesitated. It was less than a second, a fraction of a breath. But in that hesitation, a fisherman's boat rounded the rocks, and hands pulled her from the water, and her thread in the tapestry shifted from ending to continuing. And I, death itself, had failed my function for the first time in eternity. The consequences were immediate and absolute. The universe doesn't allow for uncollected debts. Elara Thorne should have died that day, and because she didn't, because I didn't take her, she couldn't die at all. Not until I fulfilled my duty. I should have corrected my mistake immediately. Should have taken her the next day or the next week, closed the wound in causality before it could fester. But I didn't, because I went back to look at her just once to understand what had made me hesitate. I found her in her cottage, alive and laughing, teaching her younger sister to braid wildflowers into crowns. The joy on her face was so pure, so radiant that I told myself, one more day. I'll give her one more day. One day became a week became a month became 200 years. I have watched Elara Thorne live more lifetimes than any human was meant to endure. I watched her marry Thomas Ward in 1827, a good man who made her smile. I watched her bear 3 children, each birth the agony of love and terror, because some part of her knew, even if she couldn't articulate it, that something was wrong with her existence. I watched her bury Thomas in 1869, after 42 years of marriage. She wept for months. I watched her children grow old while she remained 32, unchanging. I watched their confusion turn to fear, watched the whispers start in the village. Witch, demon, unnatural. I watched her flee in 1891, leaving behind her children and grandchildren, because staying meant watching them die while she persisted, unchanging as stone. That's when the misery began. In the beginning, Elara had been resilient. She'd adapted to her immortality with remarkable grace, rebuilding her life in new cities under new names. She'd been a teacher in London, a nurse in Paris, a librarian in New York. She'd loved again brief, desperate affairs with mortals who would inevitably age and leave her behind. Each loss carved something away from her. By 1950, she'd stopped forming attachments. She moved through the world like a ghost, taking temporary jobs, living in furnished rooms, speaking to no one unless necessary. I watched her sit in a cafe in Vienna for 6 hours, unmoving, her coffee growing cold, her eyes fixed on nothing. I wanted to speak to her, to explain, to apologize. But death doesn't speak to the living. We're meant to be silent shepherds, guides at the final threshold. Revealing myself to her, acknowledging what I'd done, it would violate fundamental laws. So I remained silent, watching, suffering in my own way. Because here's what no one tells you about death. We feel everything. Every grief, every loss, every moment of fear and relief and desperate hope as souls pass through our hands. We're not cold. We're not empty. We're full of everyone's endings, and it breaks us constantly, and we endure because we must. But this watching Elara suffer, knowing I was the cause, this was a different kind of breaking. 1998, Seattle. I found her on the Aurora Bridge at 3 a.m., standing at the railing, looking down at the water far below. She'd tried before, of course. Jumping, drowning, poison, blades, every method available to someone desperate to end their existence. But the debt wouldn't allow it. Her body would heal, or she'd be found in time, or some impossible coincidence would intervene. Because she couldn't die until I took her. "Why won't you let me go?" she whispered to the night, and my eternal heart shattered because she was talking to me, even if she didn't know it. A police officer found her before she could jump, took her to a hospital. They kept her for 72 hours, prescribed medications that couldn't touch the real problem, released her back into a world that had become her prison. I followed her to the apartment she'd rented under her current name, Elara Thorne, a simplification she'd adopted in the 1960s. It was bare except for a mattress and a single suitcase. No photographs, no mementos. Nothing that would anchor her to a world she no longer wanted to inhabit. She sat on the floor and wept. I materialized in the corner, not fully, just enough to be present, though she couldn't see me. I wanted to reach out, to touch her shoulder, to tell her I was sorry, so desperately sorry that I'd been too much of a coward to do my job 200 years ago. "Please," she sobbed. "Please, I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. I just want to rest. Then let me take you," I thought, desperate. "Let me finally fulfill my purpose and grant you peace." But I couldn't, because taking her now would mean admitting what I'd done. Would mean facing the truth that I'd violated the fundamental order of existence, not out of mercy or duty, but out of something far more selfish. I had fallen in love with her. Not immediately. Not in that first moment underwater, though that's when the seed was planted. But slowly, over decades of watching her live with such fierce determination, despite the curse I'd placed on her. Watching her show kindness to strangers, even as her own heart was breaking. Watching her find beauty in sunrises and old books and the first snow of winter, even as the years piled up like stones. She was the bravest person I'd ever known, and her bravery was killing her, and I was too much of a coward to stop it. Death's Immortal Debt Part 2 continues the story. 2024. Present day. Elara is in a hospice in Portland, Oregon, under the name Elara Thorne. She's arranged it carefully claimed to be 94, produced forged documents, allowed herself to be seen as a frail old woman ready for the end. But there is no end. Not yet. I sit beside her bed every night, visible only to myself, watching her sleep. She's still 32, though she hides it well with makeup and posture. Still beautiful in the way that first caught my attention 2 centuries ago. Not classical beauty, but something more essential. The architecture of a soul that refuses to break despite everything. Tonight, she opens her eyes and looks directly at me. I freeze. It should be impossible. The living don't see death unless they're crossing over, unless I allow it, unless... "I've always known you were there," she says quietly. Not at first, but after a while, I could feel you, watching, waiting. My form solidifies against my will, shock overriding control. She can see me completely now, the shape I've worn for millennia. Neither male nor female, neither young nor old, just death. "How long have you known?" My voice sounds strange. I haven't spoken to a living person in eons. Since 1891, maybe. When I realized I couldn't die. She struggles to sit up, and I move to help her before remembering I shouldn't. But my hands are already there, supporting her, and her eyes widen at the touch. "You're real," she breathes. "I thought I might be going mad. 200 years of imagining you. You're not mad. You're..." I struggle for words. "You should have died in 1824. I was supposed to take you. I didn't, and now you can't die until I do." She stares at me for a long moment. Then she laughs a broken, bitter sound. "So it's you." You're the reason I've been trapped in this endless fucking nightmare. Yes. Why? The word is a knife. Why didn't you take me? Why let me suffer like this? I should lie? Should claim it was mercy, or an accident, or anything but the truth. But she's been suffering for 200 years because of my cowardice. She deserves honesty, at least. Because when I saw you, I say quietly, really saw you, in that moment underwater, you were so full of life, so bright, so determined to survive. And I thought, just one more day. I'll give her one more day of that brightness. And one day became many, and many became 200 years of hell. Yes, Elara closes her eyes. Do you have any idea what it's like? Watching everyone you love grow old and die? Forming connections and having to sever them before people notice you're not aging? Being so fucking tired that even breathing feels like lifting boulders. But you can't stop, can't rest, can't. Her voice breaks. I've tried everything. I've begged. I've prayed to gods I don't believe in. I've stood at the edge of so many cliffs and bridges and rooftops, and every time something stops me. Someone finds me. The rope breaks. The gun jams. Because the debt won't allow you to die by any hand but mine. Then why don't you? She opens her eyes, and they're blazing with 2 centuries of rage and grief. Why keep me here? What possible reason? Because I love you. The words fall into the silence like stones into water. Elara stares at me. What? I love you, I repeat, the confession tearing out of me after 200 years of silence. I've loved you since I started watching you rebuild your life after Thomas died. Since I saw you comfort that child who'd lost her mother in 1903. Since you sat in that Vienna cafe in 1950, broken and alone, and still left a generous tip for the waitress because you noticed she looked tired. I move closer, my form flickering with emotion. I've watched you be kind and brave and beautiful for 200 years, and every day I told myself I'd do my duty tomorrow. I'd take you tomorrow, but tomorrow never came because the thought of a world without you in it was unbearable. She slaps me. I don't know how I'm deaf. Incorporeal unless I choose otherwise, but her hand connects with my face with a crack that echoes through the hospice room. You selfish bastard, she hisses. You kept me alive because you couldn't bear to let me go? Do you have any idea how monstrous that is? I've been in agony for 2 centuries, and it's because you wanted to keep watching me like I'm some kind of entertainment? No, I don't care what you wanted. Your death. Your job is to take people when it's their time, not play favorites because you developed a sick obsession. She's right. Of course she's right. I know, I say quietly. I know it was selfish, cruel, unforgivable. I've known that for 199 years, but I stop searching for words that don't exist. In all of eternity and all the billions of souls I've guided across, you're the only one who ever made me want to be something other than what I am. The only one who made me wish I could be alive just to spend one real day with you. Elara's laugh is jagged with tears. Well, congratulations. You got your wish. You've spent 200 years with me, and you've turned my entire existence into a prison. I know. So end it. She grabs my hand, my actual hand, solid in hers. Please, I'm begging you. I have been begging you for so long. Just take me. Grant me peace. Let me rest. This is the moment. The one I'd been avoiding for 2 centuries. All I have to do is fulfill my purpose, guide her across the threshold, close the debt that should never have been opened. But looking at her, at the exhaustion etched into every line of her face, the desperation in her eyes, the way 200 years of suffering has hollowed her out, I finally understand the full magnitude of what I've done. I haven't kept her alive out of love. I've tortured her out of selfishness. I'll do it, I say, my voice breaking. I'll take you. Right now. I'll end this. Relief floods her face. Thank you. God, thank you. But first, I need you to understand something. What? When I take you, the debt closes. Causality corrects itself. You'll die as you should have in 1824, age 32, drowning off the coast of Cornwall. I grip her hand tighter. Everything that came after, your marriage, your children, every life you touched, every person you helped, it all retroactively ceases to exist. The universe will adjust the timeline to account for your death 200 years ago. Elara goes very still. What are you saying? Death's Immortal Debt. Part 3 continues the story. Your 3 children? Never born. Your students in London? Never taught. The child you saved from that fire in 1903? Dies in the original timeline. Every single impact you've had on the world for 200 years erased. That's not possible. It's the nature of the debt. You were meant to die. You didn't. The universe allowed the deviation because someday it would be corrected. But when it is, I can barely force the words out. It's like you never lived past 1824. Elara pulls her hand from mine, horror dawning on her face. So if you take me now, hundreds of lives are altered, thousands probably through the ripple effects. Everyone you've touched, everyone you've saved, everyone who exists because of your intervention gone. She stands on shaking legs, backing away from me. You're lying. You're just saying that to keep me here, to keep me trapped. I swear on the eternal darkness, I'm telling you the truth. I've known this for 200 years. It's why I stop, the admission too ugly. It's why I've been too much of a coward to take you. Because doing so means erasing so much good from the world. But you said you loved me. I do. More than anything. That's the problem. If I loved you less, if I could be objective, I would have taken you immediately, and the damage would have been minimal. But I let it continue, and now the cost of correcting my mistake is catastrophic. Elara sinks back onto the bed, her face gray. So what are you saying? That I have to keep living? That I have to suffer forever, because the alternative is too destructive? No, the choice is yours. It always has been. I'm just telling you the full cost. She's quiet for a long time, her hands trembling in her lap. When she finally speaks, her voice is very small. Tell me about them. The people who would be erased. So I do. I tell her about her daughter Margaret, who became a doctor and saved hundreds during the cholera outbreak of 1873. I tell her about James, one of her students in London, who went on to write books that changed educational policy for decades. I tell her about the child from the fire Sarah, who grew up to be a nurse in World War II, pulling soldiers from trenches, keeping them alive when hope was scarce. I tell her about every life she's touched, every soul she's saved, every moment of kindness that rippled outward into the world. By the time I finish, she's weeping. I can't, she whispers. I can't erase them. They're innocent. They deserve to exist. So do you, I say fiercely. You deserve rest. You deserve peace. If you want me to take you, I will, and damn the consequences. Your suffering matters more than cosmic balance. She looks at me then, really looks at me, and something shifts in her expression. Not forgiveness. I don't deserve that. But understanding, maybe. You really do love me, she says wonderingly. In your broken, fucked up way, you actually love me. Yes, and you've been suffering too. Watching me hurt, knowing it's your fault, unable to fix it. My suffering doesn't compare to... Don't. She holds up a hand. Don't diminish it. We're both trapped. You by duty you can't fulfill, me by life I can't end. She laughs bitterly. We're each other's eternal punishment. The truth of it settles over us like ash. I'm sorry, I say, and the words are completely inadequate, but all I have. I'm so desperately sorry. If I could go back, but you can't, and neither can I. Elara wipes her eyes. So what do we do? I keep living, keep suffering, so that people who don't even know they're at risk can continue existing? Or I take you, and you find peace, and the world adjusts to your absence. Those are both terrible options. I know. She's quiet again, thinking. Then, is there a third option? Some way to close the debt without erasing the timeline? I've searched for 200 years. There isn't one. But your death, you make the rules, don't you? No, I'm bound by rules older than existence itself. I don't make them. I just enforce them. Elara stands and moves to the window, looking out at the Portland skyline. When I was young, actually young, not this frozen 32 I've been for centuries, I used to think death was the worst thing that could happen to a person. Then I lived long enough to understand that sometimes living is worse. Elara, let me finish. She doesn't turn around. I've spent 200 years being angry, bitter, desperate, hating my existence and the world, and whatever cosmic choke made me unable to die. But hearing about Margaret, about James, about Sarah, and all the others, her voice cracks. They got to live because I kept going. That has to mean something. It means everything. So maybe my suffering has a purpose after all. Maybe this is the price for all that good. She finally turns to face me, and her expression is devastating in its resignation. I'll keep living. I'll endure. Not because I want to, but because the alternative is too cruel to the innocent. No, the word tears out of me. No, you've suffered enough. You don't have to. Yes, I do, because I'm not a monster. I'm not going to erase hundreds of lives just to escape my own pain. She crosses to me, takes my hands. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Stay with me. Visibly, like this. I've been alone for so long, and if I have to keep enduring, I can't do it in silence anymore. Her grip tightens. Be with me. Talk to me. Help me carry this. The request breaks something fundamental in the laws that govern my existence. Death doesn't walk beside the living, doesn't form relationships, doesn't, yes, I say, and rules be damned. Yes, I'll stay. 26 more years. That's how long we have together before the debt finally, impossibly, finds another way to close. I remain visible to Elara, and only Elara. We move through the world together. Her living, me observing, both of us trapped in our different ways. She rents a small house in Vermont. I help her tend the garden, though my touch kills the plants, and she has to replant constantly. We read together, talk, argue, grieve. She teaches me what it means to be alive. I teach her what I know of death, the peace of it, the gentleness. We don't fix each other. We can't, but we bear witness to each other's suffering, and sometimes that's enough. People think she's mad, talking to empty air. She doesn't care anymore. In 2050, on a spring morning in Vermont, Elara wakes up and her hair has a single strand of gray. We both stare at it in wonder and terror. Is it? She starts. I don't know, but over the following months, more gray appears. Fine lines around her eyes. A slowness in her movements that wasn't there before. She's aging. How? She asks me one night, examining her face in the mirror 40 years old, now instead of 32, the first real change in over 2 centuries. I check the threads of causality, the cosmic balance, and find something impossible. The universe is accepting her continued existence, not as a debt to be paid, but as an established fact. 226 years of her impact on the world has woven her so deeply into the fabric of reality that erasing her would cause more damage than allowing her to continue. You've become too important to erase, I tell her, awe in my voice. The debt is closing not through your death, but through acceptance. You're being allowed to live out a natural lifespan from this point forward. Elara stares at me. Then she starts laughing wild, almost hysterical. You're telling me that if I'd just waited 26 more years in the beginning, I could have died naturally back then? That all of this was for nothing? No, It's because of all of this, all the lives you touched, all the good you did, that the universe is making an exception. If I'd taken you earlier, before you'd become so woven into the timeline, you would have simply been erased. She sinks onto the bed, processing. So my suffering had a purpose after all. It bought time for my existence to become permanent. Yes. And now I'll age normally? Die naturally? Actually die? I checked the threads again. They're clear. In approximately 40 years, if you're healthy. Maybe 50. 40 years, she repeats wonderingly. After 226 years of immortality, I get 40 more years of normal life, and then I die. Yes. And you'll be there? At the end? I'll be there. She reaches for my hand, and I take it. Her skin is warm, alive, showing the first signs of aging mortality. Will it hurt? She asks. Dying? No. I'll make sure of it. It'll be like falling asleep. And then? Then you cross over, and you'll finally rest. Elara nods slowly. Then, these 40 years, will you stay with me? Keep me company? Death's Immortal Debt. Part 4 continues the story of Death and Elara. I should say no. Should return to my duties, to the endless work of shepherding souls. But looking at her, this woman I've loved and tortured and watched suffer for over 2 centuries, I can't. Yes, I say. I'll stay. We have 38 years. Not 40, because the universe is cruel in its kindness. But 38 is more than I deserve. More than she should give me after everything I've done to her. We don't call it love, even though that's what it is. The word feels obscene given our history. Instead, we call it companionship, penance. 2 broken things learning to exist beside each other. Elara writes a memoir, not about the immortality, because no one would believe it, but about loneliness and endurance, and finding meaning in suffering. It becomes a small bestseller. She's interviewed on podcasts. People tell her how her words helped them. She smiles and doesn't mention that she's literally been alive for over 250 years. I watch her age with a mixture of relief and grief. Every gray hair, every wrinkle, every sign of mortality is proof that the debt is truly closing. But it's also a countdown to the moment when I'll have to do what I should have done in 1824. Take her. We don't talk about it. Not directly. But it's there in every conversation, every shared silence. On a spring morning in 2088, 264 years, after I first failed to take her, Elara doesn't wake up. I'm sitting beside her bed, as I have been every night for 38 years. Her breathing has been slowing for weeks, her body finally, mercifully shutting down after an impossibly long existence. At 6:47 a.m., she takes her last breath, and I, Death, finally do my job. Her soul separates from her body easily, gently, like silk sliding through fingers. She looks down at herself 70 years old, gray-haired, worn by time as humans are meant to be worn. Then she looks at me and smiles. It doesn't hurt, she says, wonder in her voice. I promised it wouldn't. She reaches for my hand, and I take it. Her soul is warm, bright, beautiful. What happens now? Now I guide you across, to rest, to peace, to whatever comes after. Will I remember? All of it? The 200 years? Every moment. She nods slowly. Good. It was awful, but it was mine. I don't want to forget. We walk together toward the threshold, that place between living and whatever comes next. It's different for everyone. For Elara, it looks like the Cornish coast where she almost died 264 years ago. The sun is rising, painting the water gold. At the edge, she pauses. I should hate you, she says quietly, for what you did to me, for the suffering. I know, but I don't. Isn't that strange? After everything, I just feel tired and ready. She squeezes my hand. Do you think we'll see each other again? After? The question catches me off guard. I don't know. Death doesn't die. I just continue. Forever? Forever. That sounds lonely. It is. It will be even more lonely now, without her light in the world to observe. But I don't say that. Thank you, she says suddenly, for staying with me these last years, for not leading me alone at the end. I should be the one thanking you, for enduring, for not hating me. Oh, I hated you plenty, for at least 150 years. Her smile is wry. But hate is exhausting, and I was already so tired. She turns to face the threshold, the golden water. One more question. Anything. Do you regret it? That moment in 1824 when you hesitated? I think about it, really think about it. About 264 years of watching her suffer. About the 38 years of companionship at the end. About all the lives saved because she kept living, and all the grief she endured because of it. Yes, I say honestly, and no, I regret your pain. I regret my cowardice, but I don't regret that you existed, that you touched so many lives, that I got to know you, even if the circumstances were unforgivable. Elara nods. That's what I thought you'd say. She steps toward the threshold, and I feel the moment approaching, the final separation, the completion of a debt 2.5 centuries overdue. Elara, I say, and she pauses. I'm sorry. For all of it. For everything. She looks back at me, this woman I've loved and tortured in equal measure, and her expression is impossibly gentle. I know, she says. I forgive you. The words break me. I don't deserve them, haven't earned them, but she gives them anyway, because she's kinder than I ever was. She steps through the threshold, and her soul dissolves into light not dying, a transforming, moving on to whatever peace exists beyond my domain. And I stand alone on the shore, watching the sunrise, finally and truly alone, after 264 years of company. The debt is closed. Causality is satisfied. The universe continues. But I remain, as I always have, as I always will. Death, eternal, and utterly, devastatingly alone. Epilogue. I continue my work. I take souls across thresholds. I fulfill my purpose with the same precision I've maintained for eons. But sometimes, on spring mornings, I find myself at the Cornish coast, standing where I first saw her, where I first hesitated. I don't know why I return. Perhaps hoping to see her again, even though I know that's impossible. Perhaps punishing myself, reminding myself of the consequences of breaking fundamental laws. Or perhaps just remembering the woman who should have died in 1824 but lived for 264 years because Death himself fell in love. The woman who taught an eternal being what it meant to suffer, to endure, to forgive. The woman who is now finally, mercifully at rest. I will carry her memory forever. Will carry the guilt forever too. But I'll also carry something else, the knowledge that for 38 years I was not entirely alone. That someone saw me, knew me, and chose companionship over hatred. It wasn't a happy ending. There was too much suffering for that, too much pain on both sides. But it was an ending nonetheless. And sometimes, for beings like us, that has to be enough. The sun rises over the water, painting the waves gold, and I stand alone on the shore, forever.